Hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio or on the new Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics coming your way over the course of the program, and I would love to get your take on them. If you'll indulge me, 719-247-1313. That is the text line and the phone line for your convenience. There is a social media component to this program. Not only can you watch the show on our social media platforms at Extra Sports 1300, you can also interact there as well if that is a preferred mode of communication for you. Now, there's a lot going on today. Want to talk about. Let's start with quite the revelation. One of the worst rosters in the National Football League, led by a rookie quarterback, starts 0-2. Surely all of those things combined into one could not lead to an 0-2 start. But that's where the Broncos are. And it's not totally surprising. But I think yesterday had a little bit more to it than just, hey, the Broncos aren't a very good team and now they're 0-2, which is a record that not very good teams have. Sorry, Baltimore Ravens. You got to figure that out. But Broncos are not a surprising 0-2. But I think yesterday, I really think it was the equivalent, the offensive equivalent of the 70-20 loss to Miami last year in week 3. Right? Different side of the football, score line not as out of whack, but it serves the same purpose if you really think about it. Because I am almost convinced that the only reason that Sean Payton kicked that first field goal is because he saw that graphic CBS flashed shortly before he took the field goal, saying that the Broncos had never been shut out at home in their history. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But even taking that field goal, kicking the second one, what did it do? Honestly, it didn't make you feel like the game was close, like the Broncos had a chance. It shouldn't have. And that's why I say it's like the 70-20 game last year, because it just never felt like the Denver Broncos were on the same level as the Steelers. And the defense, it's like from that Miami game, offense put up 20. They never put up 20. Nobody cares. Broncos held Pittsburgh to 13 points. No one cares. Doesn't matter. Nobody's talking about the Broncos defense and saying, well, if they could keep playing like this, because it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because it's about the offense. And another reason why it's similar to the 70-20 game against Miami is because I feel like everybody now is on the same page. It feels that way. Where, yeah, this team isn't close. They're still not close. A season later, they're not any closer to being a good football team than they were when they got blown out by Miami 70-20. And that's exactly what I said after that game last year. It was a bit of an exaggerated example, but sometimes you need very dramatic signals to finally get in the right headspace. And you say, well, this is year 2 under Sean Payton. Shouldn't there be progress? Not with the rookie quarterback there, shouldn't it? Not after letting, either actively getting rid of or just letting 4 or 5 players who were starters, who were integral parts of last year's team, just letting them go. The Broncos started over this year, and Sean Payton was talking about it all offseason with the puzzle piece metaphor. Dumping out all the puzzle pieces and putting it back together. They hit the reset button. They're starting from scratch. So, no, there should not be any progress from year 1 to year 2 because that was, I don't know what you want to call it, an evaluation year or whatever. This is year 1 of the new Denver Broncos. And it's not off to a great start, but it's not surprising. And you look over and you see the Chargers who brought in Jim Harbaugh and it's working immediately. And maybe you wonder, why isn't it working with Denver? And yes, the easy answer would say, well, they have Justin Herbert. But watch the Chargers. Justin Herbert's not winning these games for them. But the Chargers have a handful of first-round picks on their offense. Right? The Broncos aren't talented. And I tried to get the message across during the offseason that they're not better than they were last year. They are less talented than they were the year before. And look, everyone's going to focus on Bo Nix's pick in the end zone, and I get it. Egregious mistake. Cannot happen. Felt like it changed the game. I understand all of that. And Bo Nix has done that a lot through 2 games. He stares down receivers and he gets that tunnel vision. Right? He gets tunnel vision on a receiver and doesn't notice opposing defenders lurking in the area. He's done that for 2 games now. And I get it. That's where a lot of people want to point to. But what happens when Bo Nix puts good passes there? Greg Dulcich drops them. The receivers can't gain any separation. Like last week, one of the throws that Bo Nix was being heralded for, that was all him. Josh Reynolds was pinned between the sideline and a defender, and Bo Nix fit it onto his back shoulder. These wide receivers aren't getting open. And the only one that you actually believe can is Marvin Mims, and clearly Sean Payton doesn't trust him to be on the field. So this is what bad teams do, right? If it's not the quarterback, it's the wide receivers. If it's not the wide receivers, it's the offensive line. If it's not the offensive line, it's the running backs. Yeah, you have running backs who can't break tackles. You have an offensive line that can't block, although you got to give some credit to the Steelers. You saw what they did against Atlanta last week. Receivers can't get open. Bo Nix is staring down receivers and not noticing defenders lurking in the area. Yeah, these are all hallmarks of bad teams that don't have a lot of talent. But my big takeaway with Bo Nix, in the way I would phrase it, Bo Nix right now is better at making a play than the play. And what I mean by that is look at these last 2 games. The best of Bo Nix is late in the game. Why is that? Adam Archuleta pointed it out on the broadcast. Number one reason, no pressure. No pressure. Just got to play. But there's so much more wrapped up into it. Right? Early on in games, it's the script, it's the game plan. It's you got to do this. We got to try to accomplish this. We want to get this guy involved. We want you to target this guy. Late in the game, it's just go make plays. Just go. And that should be an encouraging sign, if you're a Broncos fan, that Bo Nix has playmaking ability. But right now, it seems like in these crucial spots over the course of the game where the Broncos can really take control or get back into a game, that's when Bo Nix and this Broncos offense falters. And then, like yesterday, like week one, the game really decided. But hey, you get this nice little sequence there at the end where you see some of Bo Nix's ability. Now it's on Sean Payton to expand on that, to try and take what you see from Bo Nix on the last drive of these games and try to bring it more into the rest of the game. I have some thoughts, some suggestions I'll share a little bit later, but that's going to be the name of the game moving forward here, because you see his playmaking ability. You see he can throw the ball. But it's all when there's no pressure and there's no thinking. They're just playing. And Sean Payton's got to try and replicate that through 4 quarters the best he can, because that's been good Bo Nix. But also notice across the league. And if you weren't too disgusted with the Broncos to watch other football teams play last night, you would have seen, hey, guess what? It's not going much better for Caleb Williams either. Williams, 56% completion percentage, 267 yards, no touchdowns, 2 picks, and has a quarterback rating of 53. Why is that? Is that because Caleb Williams stinks? No. It's because the Houston Texans, whenever they would bring 5 rushers, were immediately on to Caleb Williams and he couldn't do anything. Jaden Daniels has looked the best out of the 3 of them, still hasn't thrown a touchdown. Right? And Jaden Daniels played the Giants yesterday. If the Broncos could only be so lucky. Yeah, Bo Nix's numbers say in many ways he's the worst of the 3. Again, shouldn't be a revelation. He was never thought of better than those 2 guys. But they're struggling too. They're looking like rookies too. That's the forgivable part of all of this, and why I don't understand that people are bailing on Bo Nix. I'm not saying, hey, stick with him. He's absolutely going to improve, because there are more questions that pop up every week. I'm just saying you shouldn't be out on the guy after 2 weeks, especially when you consider what dearth of talent he has to work with around him. It's just, he's a rookie. He should be the guy that you have more patience for. And because he's the quarterback, he's going to get the lion's share of the blame. I get it, but I'm just here to say he shouldn't. He shouldn't be without blame. But he doesn't have much to work with. Now, 0-2. You know the track record of teams that start off 0-2 in terms of the playoffs. This is another reason why it reminds me of 70-20, because now no one is talking about how many games the Broncos can win, how competitive they're going to be. They just want the Broncos to be competitive. A recalibration of the expectations surrounding this team across the board. And even the head coach of the Denver Broncos seems to have his mind in the right place, and it's not about winning football games.
When you run a play and it doesn't have success, are we putting in our guys in the best position? We're rotating a lot of different personnel groups in and out. I don't know if that's helping us, quite honestly, and we just need to evaluate that closely. Evaluate what we're doing relative to our personnel.
Right now, it's just about finding the right guys to put around Bo Nix. Not necessarily so they can win a ton of football games, but just so Bo Nix can develop. That's the sense I got from Sean Payton, is that the winning part of this whole equation, it's not that he doesn't want to win. It's just we got to find some guys that can help out Bo Nix. A running back that can break tackles, a wide receiver that can get separation as long as it's not Marvin Mims, because there's no way Sean Payton's going to play Marvin Mims. I don't know if he has anybody that fits those descriptions, but that's what the goal is now. 0-2. Just find the right guys that can help Bo Nix develop. And that's what this season should have always been about. But just like last year, need a bit of a shock to the system to be like, okay, let's make the main thing the main thing. Broncos aren't a good football team. They won't win many games. But can they get Bo Nix to develop? 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Broncos, Bo Nix specifically. And coming up next, CU was embarrassing CSU on Saturday, and then they embarrassed themselves. Week 2 wraps up tonight with Atlanta and Philadelphia. It's time to report for game day at Hooters of Colorado Springs. Tonight, grab a Big Daddy, a Bud Light, or Michelob Ultra for $5.19, or catch the fan filler. 10 boneless wings, fries, a dressing, and a drink for only $16.59. Get into Hooters of Colorado Springs for all the football action. Saturday was perfect, absolutely perfect for Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. They were the much better team than Colorado State. They were the more disciplined team. Now, mind you, not disciplined, just more disciplined than CSU. They were not disciplined by anybody's objective measure. But compared to CSU, they had their stuff together. CSU collapsed under the weight that they thrust upon themselves. You know what Saturday was? Saturday was the complete opposite of the meeting between these two teams last year. The meeting between these two teams last year consisted of Colorado overlooking Colorado State, Colorado State being solely focused on Colorado, punching them in the mouth, and they nearly beat them. This year was CSU acting like they could overlook CU, that they somehow were the better team, and CU punching them in the mouth. Although I should mention that no one got punched in the mouth, because at times you wondered if somebody was going to get punched in the mouth. Nobody from any account I have seen actually got punched in the mouth. Metaphorically speaking, CU punched CSU in the mouth. It was like CSU was like, we got this. No, you don't. Not if CU's not overlooking you, you don't got this. And they just fell apart. The penalties, losing Torrey Horton didn't help, obviously, but don't sit here and tell me Torrey Horton makes all the difference in a 28-9 game. It was a blow to morale for sure. It hurt them greatly offensively. But I did not think that CSU, I should say, was ready. And I said on Friday, I hope they are, with the talking that they did. And they continued it into the game. And it was as good of a night for CU as they could possibly have dreamt up. They were running the football. They were protecting Shedeur. They were stopping the Rams. Meanwhile, the Rams look like an absolute mess. Their fans are going through it in the stands. Some of the reactions from the students were everything that you as a CU fan could have hoped for. And then the last 4 minutes of the game rolled around. And now that's the biggest story. And it didn't have to be. 5 of 7 plays on the final CU drive in a game where CU was basically up by 3 touchdowns. They threw the ball. Here's Deion Sanders explaining himself.
We want to score. The game is about scoring, isn't it? I don't know protocol. You should have called me and told me when to pull off. They was trying to. As long as the other team is trying to score, we're trying to score. That's my rule.
Okay, now, to be fair, that question was about leaving the first team offense in there, which is an awful question. Like, I don't expect the Buffs to pull Shedeur Sanders at the end of the game. Like, that's 63-3 stuff. Like, no, leave them in. Leave everybody in. That's fine. But the throwing of the football, was the issue, and I don't think Deion Sanders' answer would have been any different. He knows. Well, I don't know the protocols. Yes, you do. You know damn well what the protocols are. And it's not even about protocols, right? This is not some unwritten rules of baseball stuff. This is football coaching 101. I'm up by a bunch. There's not much time left. Do we throw the ball and stop the clock and risk injury and risk interceptions? No, you run the football. And that was a game where the Buffs could have gotten a few extra reps running the football. This team couldn't run the football for 2 weeks. They finally find a game that they can, and late in the game, they're going back to Shedeur Sanders airing it out. Deion Sanders knows damn well what that occasion called for, because if he doesn't, then he's a worse coach than I even thought he was. He knows. There were two reasons why the Colorado Buffaloes were throwing the football late in the game. First and foremost, it was because they wanted to run up the score on CSU. It wasn't that, hey, the objective of the game is to score. No, the objective of that game for CU was to run up the score. That's what they were trying to do first and foremost, because of everything that Jay Norvell has said in the past, that Jay Norvell's wife has said in the past, that Torrey Horton and Braden Fowler Nicolosi said in the offseason. I cannot stress this enough, that it was not said leading up to the game. That will be a recurring theme when you hear Deion Sanders talk. He acts like it just happened 3 days ago. It did not. It was in the offseason. I'm not trying to say that CU was smart in what they said, because they were not. Just saying, when they said it is relevant. He was trying to run it up. But secondly, he was trying to pad stats of Shedeur and Travis. And I know, especially in the state of Colorado, when somebody throws around the phrase stat padding, that causes a visceral reaction. I can use Deion Sanders' own words to make my point. In the tunnel to CBS's sideline reporter after the game, he said in black and white that the reason why Travis Hunter went back into that football game after he left with the injury, chasing down the CSU running back, was so they could get him 100 yards to extend his streak of 100-yard receiving games. That is stat padding. That's stat padding. If they would have gotten Travis Hunter 100 yards receiving in a game that was decided by one touchdown, that's not stat padding. That's trying to win a football game. The game was well in hand. They put Travis back in there so they could extend his streak of 100-yard receiving games, which would also benefit Shedeur Sanders. That is stat padding. First and foremost, they wanted to embarrass CSU. Secondly, it was about stat padding for his two favorite players. And in the process, ironically, while trying to embarrass CSU, CU and Deion Sanders embarrassed themselves. If that game would have been, let's say they get another touchdown, would there be anybody going, whoa, watch out for CU? No. They just look like they're taking their opportunity. Everybody dunks on them. So finally they found someone lower in the food chain and they wanted to dunk on them. It's not impressive to beat CSU. You should beat CSU. You should beat them by a lot. running up the score would not have accomplished anything more than what you had already accomplished through the normal course of the football game. Run the football, get Micah Welch some more yards, some more carries. He looked good. Like, it's not about being polite. It's not about being a gracious winner. Get Micah Welch more carries. Get the kid from Arkansas some more rep. I'm not saying kneel. You don't necessarily even have to kneel on it. Just run the football. Ross Tucker kept saying, and by the way, just as an aside, like, Ross Tucker needs to be doing big games. He is one of my favorite broadcasters right now. Ross Tucker is so freaking good at what he does. But like, just run the football. And what Ross Tucker was talking about is, what if Shedeur gets hurt? Could you imagine? Because they did a decent job protecting him. They didn't do great in protecting Shedeur. And let me take it to where CU fans would take it. What if CSU took that opportunity to take a shot at Shedeur? Hit him below the knees. Okay, I don't think that CSU, even with some of the shots that they took, would be that diabolical. But if you're a CU fan, maybe you think that they are. Did you like the idea of Shedeur continuing to drop back 5 of the last 7 plays of the game with it already decided? Absolutely not. So in one foul swoop, the CEU Buffaloes and Deion Sanders took an absolute embarrassment to their in-state rival and a get-right game. And exactly what they needed, and turned it into the embarrassment. And this is why I keep talking about. They bring it on themselves. Deion Sanders will sit up there for the vast majority of his press conference talking about, oh, you won't talk about this and you won't talk about that. And if we did this and if we did that, this is not about unfair persecution. This is about you doing something that is embarrassing. They bring it on themselves, and they can't help themselves. Or he. I don't want to say they. He can't help himself. He saw an opportunity to pad his son's stats, to pad Travis's stats, to further embarrass Jay Norvell. And you know what the kicker of all of it is? They didn't even score on the drive. They tried to run up the score and they couldn't even do it. Can't believe that after watching 56 minutes of that football game, I was getting ready to praise CU for a bounce back win and to demolish CSU for being completely undisciplined, for Braden Fowler, Nicolosi being absolute clown for hitting Travis Hunter with the too small. It was going to be all against CSU today for 56 minutes of that football game. And then Deion's like, I can't. Can't help himself. And so they're the bigger story of Saturday. For a bad reason. When it should have been nothing but good things for the Colorado Buffaloes. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Rocky Mountain Showdown. There is another side of that game, and it's the CSU side of things. And I can even though you really can't see temperature, I can see the seat that Jay Norvell was sitting on after that game getting a little bit warmer. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Trans-Siberian Orchestra returns to Colorado Springs with its winter tour, The Lost Christmas Eve, for 2 spectacular shows on Sunday, November 17th. They'll be at the Broadmoor World Arena, so the best place to go to get your tickets, which are on sale now, BroadmoorWorldArena.com. So check it out. Just as to get I think a pretty good encapsulation of where we're at right now with things. This came in from the 719 yesterday. All of Colorado is in trouble with football outside of high school. Broncos terrible, CU, CSU, Air Force terrible. Our Division II teams are better, but still, oh my God, we suck. I'm a Steelers fan, Colorado native, but Colorado teams are embarrassing right now. See, I could have just read that text and then taken the rest of the afternoon off, because that is, quite honestly, the general theme of today's show. As always, you are more succinct than I am. But fun fact, I get paid by the word, so I'm going to be here till 5:30, using many words to describe basically that text right there. For the CSU side of Saturday, and again, I think that the bigger story somehow, some way, actually became CU embarrassing themselves by trying to run up the score late in that game and failing to do so. But they did get Travis his 100 yards, so talk about him coming up next hour. I listened to Jay Norvell speak after Saturday's loss, and I heard him in the span of his 90-second soliloquy to open up his post-game press conference say, we're not good enough, or we weren't good enough. I should say that's probably a important distinction. We weren't good enough 3 or 4 times in about 90 seconds. And you have to wonder, why not? I mean, why aren't you? Like, I didn't expect them to beat CU, but to get embarrassed. So now if you're keeping track at home, the Rams have been embarrassed. They blew out UNC, and then they got embarrassed again. How about your $600,000 quarterback? Why shouldn't you get a little bit more out of him? The last 2 quarterbacks that CU went up against had pretty good days. Braden Fowler-Nicolosi couldn't move the ball against CU's defense? Or is that why Kansas State offered both he and Torrey Horton, allegedly, $600,000 each, because without the other, couldn't have one? Without Horton, you can't pay for Nicolosi. Is that how it is? Look, yeah. Setting that aside, and I see why CSU tried to use that. It's not aging well. It doesn't make them look good after the first 3 weeks of the season. Let's put this where it should be put, and that's on the shoulders of Jay Norvell. Because I don't think Braden Fowler-Nicolosi is a quarterback that could go up against and I mean, think about it. CU is one of the worst teams in the Big 12. He couldn't move the ball. But at what point is CSU going to be good enough? That's what Rams fans have to be wondering. They flashed a graphic on the broadcast Saturday night. Jay Norvell has not beaten CU, Air Force, or Wyoming. And with all due respect to Air Force, yes, it further amplifies some of the bad with Jay Norvell in his tenure in Fort Collins. But it's really the other two that are the most alarming to Rams fans. Air Force is going through their own stuff right now, so it's possible that CSU beats them. But if they don't win the border war, you're 3 years in. You're 3 years in without a win against Wyoming, and it's not like Wyoming's great this year. You're 3 years in without a win against Wyoming and getting into all this stuff with Deion Sanders. Like, it looks great and it curries you favor with your fans in the moment, but now what do you have? And I said after the Texas game, like, I get it. They're not supposed to beat Texas. It was probably going to be a blowout, but it felt so demoralizing. And it's the same thing with Saturday. That was a demoralizing loss, not just, we lost to CU, because a lot of CSU fans came out last year's meeting going, you know what? Could have had him. Just came up a little bit short. Lot to be proud of. After the initial frustration and disappointment over the game subsided, I think there was a lot that CSU fans clung to and was like, okay. And then the rest of the season didn't go well. And now you take the payday in Austin and get absolutely demolished. And I said, I don't know that beating UNC is going to wipe that away. I don't think it did. And now you compound it with what happened against CU. You have to beat those teams, or you have to put on good showing. With Wyoming, you got to beat them. With CU, you got to put on a good showing. And you're letting your players say the stuff that they are saying. You know, it would have been an easy conversation for him to go to them and say, hey, it's media day. You're going to be asked about CU. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. We're going to put this behind us. We're not going to poke the bear. We're going to go about our business. And clearly that conversation never happened because Nicolosi and Horton said what they said. So you have a team that is woefully outgunned by CU. You haven't beaten Wyoming. For what it's worth, you haven't beaten Air Force. Where's the signature Jay Norvell win? Where's the thing that you go to and say, look, you need to stick with them because of that game. Remember that game? That was the CU game. Right? Well, now that's gone. In your building, getting blown out like that, looking incredibly undisciplined. It was getting absolutely ridiculous with the flags that were being thrown. The shot that should have been targeting on Shedeur. I don't know, for somebody from the outside, somebody that doesn't necessarily have a rooting interest or care one way or the other, they're just in it for the entertainment value. Jay Norvell's a little bit lucky that Dion played the last couple of minutes of the game the way he did to draw so much attention, because without it, it would have been solely focused on how completely overmatched CSU was in that game. I think his seat's getting warmer. I think it's getting warmer, but the ultimate deciding factor will be how they fare against Wyoming. Right? What happened on Saturday is not a fireable offense, but this Wyoming team is down bad. If CSU doesn't win, then you're going to the Pac-12 in a couple of years. Do you want to wait? You want to give it one more year and then decide before you go into the Pac-12, or would you like to have your organization in order before you make the jump from the Mountain West to the Pac-12? 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Rocky Mountain Showdown. Tonight, one more game in week 2, Atlanta and Philadelphia. Just check the line on Circa Sports Colorado, and it's sitting at Philly -5. Philly -5, and you'll notice if you download the Circa Sports Colorado app that either way you bet on tonight's game, whether it's Atlanta plus the points or Philly -5, the game will be a -110 split. And that's a consistent theme. It's intentional on the part of Circa Sports Colorado, because these other sports books, they'll lure you in with these great free bet offers, but then slowly but surely they'll make their money back with these higher holds, right? -115, -120. Circa Sports Colorado strives to be that -110 split, and they strive to keep as little money as possible on large market bets like futures, golf tournaments, compared to other books, because they want you to have a better betting experience with them. It's the same people behind Circa Resort and Casino in Vegas. In fact, if you ever have any customer service issues, you'll talk to those very same people. You can ask them, how's Fremont Street today? They'll be able to look outside and tell you, because it's the same people. They just want a better experience. And they're so confident that you'll have a better experience betting with them that they encourage you. They say, don't just delete the app that you have and download ours. Keep them both for a little while. Go back and forth. See who has the best lines, because that's how confident they are that it's them. Download the Circa Sports Colorado app today. Must be 21 years or older and present in Colorado to bet. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Drive Time Sports on a football Monday. Atlanta and Philly tonight. It's time to report for game day at Hooters of Colorado Springs. Hooters of Colorado Springs has craveable wings, ice cold beer, plenty of big screen TVs, and the world famous Hooters girls make it the number one franchise in the league. Ryan Kaufman with you on this Monday. A reminder, you can watch the show live on a daily basis on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube. The handle is at XTRA Sports. 1300. More of the same for the Denver Broncos as they fall to 0-2. And I mean more of the same from game 1 to game 2, but also more of the same when it comes to the Broncos starting 0-2. They've made a habit of this. But this year's a little bit different because Bo Nix is the quarterback. And I think that's the thing that keeps you engaged. I think if you're a Broncos fan, if they were 0-2 with Jared Stidham and Bo Nix wasn't, waiting in the wings, if they didn't draft Bo Nix and they started off 0-2 with Jared Stidham, I think a lot of Broncos fans would just be out. But Bo Nix keeps you in. But here's the thing. Something happened today in the NFL that I think could be a reality at some point for the Denver Broncos. At some point. Now, there's still time. But today in Carolina, Bryce Young was benched. And his career, for all intents and purposes, in Carolina is over after 18 games. Right? There's no going back. They may go back. That's such a mess of an organization right now in Carolina. Bryce Young could start again in the next few weeks. But this was the risk that the Broncos ran with Bo Nix, or any team runs with any rookie quarterback. Washington, Chicago, the same way. If you bench these guys, there's no going back. Broncos did this with Drew Lock. Once they benched him and chose Teddy Bridgewater, I guess they didn't bench him, but they chose Teddy Bridgewater over him. That was it for Drew Lock in Denver. People can talk about Caleb Williams or Bryce Young or Bo Nix being mentally strong, being mature. They're adults. They're grown men. They're just starting the career that they have dreamt of their whole life. And you are telling them in relatively short order that they're not good enough. That's shock to the system. Now, Bryce Young's going to hang around. Zach Wilson's still gainfully employed by the Denver Broncos. Right? Josh Rosen was on an NFL roster last year. I know this year I'm not sure if he is. But Bryce Young didn't grow up wanting to just be a quarterback somewhere on an NFL roster. Right? No kid dreams of being in the NFL carrying a clipboard or bouncing around from team to team. Carolina has essentially told Bryce Young, you're not good enough. And they know good and well that there's probably no going back. And spare me the Baker Mayfield stuff, because if anything, it's the exception that proves the rule. Carolina, Bryce Young in Carolina. And right, because Baker Mayfield's not on Cleveland anymore. Bryce Young is essentially done as a Carolina Panther. Any hope they had to r- rectify his career, which is, again, I cannot state this enough, 18 games long, is done because now they have destroyed his confidence. That can happen to Bo Nix. It can happen to any rookie quarterback. I mentioned Josh Rosen, right? One season, got destroyed as an Arizona Cardinal, and then that was it for him. They moved on to Kyler, and he bounced around. It happens, and it could happen to Bo Nix. And if you think, oh, well, it's too early for that, take a listen to Bo Nix yesterday when he was asked about his confidence level.
I think it's important to keep good perspective and, not making football your whole entire life, because you play it long enough, it'll fail you over and over and over. It'll knock you down. It'll beat you up. And the value of playing the sport is, it's just like life. Sometimes you just got to, keep taking hits, and then eventually you'll figure it out and get back on your feet and move forward. So my confidence is, bigger than football. It's bigger than wins and losses. Now, don't make a mistake about it. I'm going out there competing my tail off, trying to win every single game for this team behind me because they deserve it. But, I feel like the confidence level is going to continue to build the more and more you play.
Okay. Compare that to what Bryce Young said after yesterday's loss to the Chargers.
Draw my confidence from the Lord. So I'm very blessed. And I'm grateful for this challenge. Not ideal start, but God has everything for a reason. So I have faith in that.
And I'm not talking about anybody's belief system, but when you start to talk about the existential, right? When you can't just say, I'm confident in myself because of this, where you don't have anything to really point at and go, I'm confident in myself because of this, and you start pointing to the universe and everything existential, that's not a great spot to be in. Okay, it's great that these two have perspective, and these two, I'm not trying to take a shot at anything like that. I'm just saying at these stages of their careers, you would hope that there's a little bit more introspection, a little bit more, I'm confident in myself. I'm not just confident that everything will work out or the universe has a plan. They sound a little similar. And the second one was a guy that just got benched today. It's not crazy, even 2 games in, to think about Bo Nix ending up in the same place. It's just not, because it's not with any young quarterback. It is so fragile right now. And we have seen many a quarterback drafted in the first round be labeled a bust. Right? It happens a lot. We're not there with Bo Nix. Right? That's why I say there's still time, but you can imagine an ending to all of this, as unfortunate as it might be, like the one in Carolina. And there's not a ton through 2 games where you say, oh, it's completely different. He does have the worst numbers of any rookie quarterback. He hasn't thrown a touchdown. He's thrown 4 interceptions. The Broncos are 0-2. They haven't looked very good offensively overall. Part of this with Sean Payton, part of the process of building up a young quarterback and developing him, is maintaining his confidence. Making sure that he keeps his confidence in himself. That's part of this. And that's why I've questioned, is Sean Payton really ready for this? It's a little bit of babysitting. It is. Not to say that Bo Nix is an immature guy. He's a very mature guy. But he's immature as an NFL quarterback. And he's fragile. And Sean Payton has to help him be confident in what he's doing out there. And I saw a few times where Bo Nix looked incredibly frustrated. After the game, he was asked about the pick in the end zone and got a little surly, which is kind of part of the reason why I can see why Sean Payton likes him so much.
Drop back, do it to the other team.
You have to maintain his confidence. You have to find what works for him. But now you have double the game film. Right? You have double the game film. You have a second game. It's like in the preseason when the conversation was a 180, right? How great Bo Nix looked in the first game of the preseason. But you wanted to see it game 2, right? Well, now you have 2 games. And you can look at every play that was run and see, okay, what worked, what didn't. The Broncos have to run the football better. Right? That's a non-negotiable. It's going to be more difficult now because of the news today that Mike McGlinchey is going to be out for a month. He was rolled up on by TJ Watt late in that game. You saw them make a change on the offensive line late in that football game, and now Mike McGlinchey's out for a month. And I know you probably not overly impressed with the way that the Broncos offensive line played yesterday, but it could be worse. And not having Mike McGlinchey makes it worse, especially in the run game. But the Broncos have to find a way to run the football. But looking at Bo Nix, ironically, the thing that worked best for Bo Nix was when he didn't even have a running back on the field.
I thought that was one of, our best plays. We got into empty and we were able to evaluate what they were doing. They were playing base to our personnel and, had guys up on the ball more than DB. So we felt like we could space it out and get something going. And, several of our key, conversions for first downs came out of empty.
And look, they do need to run the football. Bo Nix can't throw the ball 42 times. And I was looking at the game yesterday saying, where's the play action game? Right? Run the football, run play action. Adam Archuleta was asking for the play action game. Kind of the reverse, though. Play action to set up the run. But, there are some things, RPOs, that are missing right now from Sean Payton's game plan for the most part. And you wonder why those things aren't being in there. But I think about that, and then I look at what the Broncos did when they didn't have a running back or late in the game when a running back wasn't really an option, right? Because they are going downfield. They're trying to score. They didn't have enough time. They can't matriculate the ball downfield. And that was the best of Bo Nix. You can't ask the guy to throw the ball 42 times in a game. But if you're going to pass it, pass it. That's kind of where I am with Bo Nix going into the Tampa game. Right? Because if you do an RPO, if you do a play action, you're asking Bo Nix to make a decision. Right? Or when it's RPO, you're asking him to make a decision. When it's play action, you're asking him to do something else. You empty out the backfield, 5 wide receivers, kind of only one thing to do, right? And it kind of plays into with the inability of the running backs to run. The best runner on this team is Bo Nix. So you empty the backfield. You let him survey the defense the whole time, knowing he's going to pass. Yes, the other team knows it. But let him read the defense for as long as he can, knowing that he's going to pass. Have it in his mind. I'm going to pass the ball. And then read the defense that way. And if there's nothing open, he's your best option to run the football right now. Let him use his legs. I mean, this is not an ideal. None of this is ideal, by the way. It's not meant to be. It's not a good situation. In an ideal world, the Broncos would have the running game that you were promised, and they could run a bunch of stuff off of that, and maybe that would make it easier on Bo Nix. That hasn't been the reality for 2 games, and now Mike McGlinchey's out for a month. Sean Payton needs to take what works and do as much of that as he can. Can't go overboard, right? It's you got to massage it, you got to find the right balance. But to me, if you want to throw the ball, just let Bo Nix throw the ball. And it's got to start going downfield now. Game 1, I was okay with the initial game plan, and I thought they got away from it, and I thought they cost him. And then game 2, you had some more of that. Now it's time. You got, for his confidence sake, you got to go downfield. And Adam Archuleta kept harping on throughout the broadcast. Got to go downfield. Yes, you got to go downfield to try and win the game, but you also got to go downfield and let Bo Nix feel confident in that way. Because I don't know that the dinking and dunking is going to raise his confidence level. There's not a lot to like about Bo Nix's performances the first 2 weeks, but there are little morsels there. And it's on Sean Payton to figure it out. That's why he's paid the big bucks. That's why everybody allowed him to take Bo Nix, even though conventional wisdom said Bo Nix wasn't worthy of the 12th overall pick. This is what Sean Payton is paid to do. And he's chosen to do it with a rookie quarterback. So he's got to find some things that he can be confident in. And maybe the empty backfield thing is one of them. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Broncos and Steelers. Coming up next, the continued greatness of Shedeur Sanders was pretty good, of Travis Hunter. I want to talk about Travis Hunter and whether he is an early season frontrunner for the Heisman. Drive Time Sports. Reminder, you can listen to the show on the new and improved Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. I kind of wondered, so I was doing the Switchbacks game during the Rocky Mountain Showdown. And so first thing I did when I got home was I turned that on, and even with the ability to skip through the halftime show and commercials, that game still took like 4 hours. I don't know how that's possible. I always thought it was the halftime show and the commercials that took so long, but it was all the flags that were being thrown. It was still a 3-hour process, and I did not go to bed till the wee hours of the morning, but that's my cross to bear. One thing that I intentionally did not get on social media because I didn't want any spoilers. I wanted to just watch the game and try to replicate the feeling that you had watching that. And I almost wondered whether Braden Fowler Nicolosi hitting Travis Hunter with the too small on the sideline would be kind of like overlooked. Now, not necessarily on social media because we see everything, but I would have really liked to get both coaches' take on that. Now, Jay Norvell was not asked a single question about that or the Buffs trying to run up the score or the very half-hearted handshake between he and Deion. None of those questions were posed to him, but thankfully someone did ask Deion Sanders about Braden Fowler Nicolosi hitting the Travis Hunter with the too small.
How stupid is that? This is Travis Hunter. Dude, this is Travis Hunter. This is Travis Hunter. Like, who does that? I wouldn't allow my kids to do that. And y'all know that.
I won't go that far. But it is Travis Hunter. Of all the players on the field, like, given the way that CU has played for the last season and 2 games, there are only 2 players that you probably shouldn't trash talk, you probably shouldn't taunt. It's Shedeur Sanders and it's Travis Hunter. Everyone else hasn't proven anything. You want to get in the face of some of these other players, go right ahead. Those 2 you should probably not, and especially Travis Hunter. And all Travis Hunter did after that was catch 2 touchdowns and, oh, by the way, pick off Braden Fowler Nicolosi. This was actually a game, because here's my worry with Travis Hunter's Heisman candidacy. That the other guy in Boulder sucks so much air out of the room, as many quarterbacks do, that even given what Travis Hunter is doing, if the Buffaloes were somewhat successful this season, that Shedeur would cancel out Travis Hunter or go instead of Travis Hunter, which be like, how could that be given what Travis Hunter's doing? Just look at the NFL. One of the worst years of quarterbacking play we have seen in recent years. Just no real standout great quarterback performances in the NFL last year. I suggest that Tyreek Hill should win the MVP, and wouldn't you know it, they gave it to Lamar Jackson. So I've seen it. But that's where a game like last night, like Saturday, can really help. Because people can grow a bit complacent with the idea that Travis Hunter is out there on almost every play. Right? As silly as that sounds, It happens. It happened with Shohei Ohtani in Anaheim. Trust me. People just took for granted the fact that he's doing both. He had to put up numbers doing both to fight against that. And Travis Hunter was able to do that Saturday. The problem, too, is that other quarterbacks will be smarter and throw it away from him, which is what North Dakota State and Nebraska did. So there's got to be like almost a Nikola Jokic-like push from people, right? Just beating the national media over the head with it type push for Travis Hunter. Because I see the early Heisman list. It's Jackson Dart. It's Cam Ward. And I'm not saying they're not deserving of an invite to New York. But it's like the more and more, like people, they're trying to throw Carson Beck into it. They barely beat Kentucky. Like there's that pool of quarterbacking that just sucks up so much of the attention that a guy doing it like Travis Hunter somehow gets overlooked. And I think Saturday was good because he had numbers. He had big numbers, and he got the interception, and he showcased what he does on both sides of the ball. But my goodness, like the most impressive thing that Travis Hunter did all night was chase down that CSU running back. Given the fact that he had played pretty much every snap, and he's the guy that chases him down before he gets to the end zone. Like, I think Travis Hunter and Nikola Jokic are very similar in this way, that you can't grow complacent about it. You got to keep harping on how unbelievable it is what he's doing. And just make sure that if CU happens to slip into mediocrity again, that you just continue talking about what Travis Hunter is doing. Because it went by the wayside last year. He missed the games after the hit from Henry Blackburn. And then he came back and everybody was kind of off of CU. They were losing. And I don't know that what I saw against Baylor, against CSU, makes me feel great about Baylor if I'm a CU fan. I think they got a good shot to win, but I don't look at the rest of the Big 12 schedule and see a lot of wins out there for the Colorado Buffaloes. And I think people are going to move away if Ole Miss is a playoff contender, if Georgia keeps on winning, if Miami keeps on winning. Like, quarterbacks grab a few of those seats at the table, but what he's doing is you just hope that CU can win enough. Right? Bowl eligibility, like that kind of winning, just enough to where people still watch and people still care and they haven't moved away and they're starting to focus on the contenders because what Travis Hunter is doing is at least worth an invite. Like, if I were inviting people to New York today, the first three names I would invite are Travis Hunter, Jaden Milroe, and Cam Ward. And probably the fourth is Jackson Dart. What he's doing at least deserves to be recognized in that way. And then we could talk about whether he deserves to win it coming up. But I have a hard time. What's everybody doing? Everybody's putting up numbers against non-conference teams, mediocre teams. Like they're all doing that right now. Let's see what Cam Ward does when the conference season rolls around. Let's see what Jaden Milroe does, Jackson Dart, Carson Beck, some of these other names. And then let's see what Shador does. But through the first 3 games, Shador's been really good for 2 of them. Travis Hunter's been very good for all 3. And it's just that he doesn't impact the game the way a quarterback does, or doesn't draw the attention that a quarterback does. But he was unbelievable again on Saturday. And by the way, not for nothing, all the right stuff too. Like just as a dude. Says all the right things, does all the right things. What he did last year with Henry Blackburn really showed you what type of guy he is. Like he's the best of CU right now. Right? There's a lot of other things that are going on that don't put that program in a good light, that are a little bit grating on the nerves. Nothing about Travis Hunter does that. It's just, we just haven't seen it like this. Forget Charles Woodson, forget Champ Bailey. You haven't seen it like this ever. 719-247-1313. Take some of your thoughts on the day's stories coming up. Also, some rumors. You knew this was coming after the news last week of the Pac-12 poaching some teams from the Mount West. What happens to teams that are still calling the Mount West home, like, I don't know, Air Force? There's a report about that, and I'll bring that to you next on Extra Sports 1300. Well, you knew this was coming on the heels of last week's news that the Pac-12 is not just going to go quietly into the night, that they're going to poach 4 teams from the Mountain West Conference. Boise, Fresno, CSU, San Diego State. What would happen? And would the Sharks start circling? Now, there's a report earlier this afternoon from Pete Thamel that says that the American Athletic Conference, the AAC, home already to Army and Navy, is looking at Air Force as a potential expansion candidate. Now, Thamel was quick to point out that this was already being discussed before last week's news, which should not shock anybody because every conference right now is constantly evaluating. That's the world we're in college athletics, is that even the conferences that expand got to immediately look to how they're going to expand next. Right? And that's why I say I don't know that the Pac-12 or the Mountain West can legitimately survive apart. Right? I still think that the best course of action, and they can work it out amongst themselves, what the conference is called, who runs the conference, whose people do what, all that kind of, whatever this power struggle is about, the best thing is to figure it out and to just put Oregon State and Washington State with the entire Mountain West. And then they look to poach from other conferences. Having these 2 8-conference leagues, and it's just, I don't see how it's going to work. Because one of the big things that ensures your survival, at least for a time, is being bigger. Right? That's what it seems like. The bigger you are, the tougher you are to basically pick apart and fade into nothingness. Although the Pac-12's like, we were a pretty big conference. There's no foolproof plan. And there is a sense of inevitability that once the Big Ten and the SEC decide, we'll take all of it, thank you, they will. Right? So this is just biding your time, putting yourself in a better position as a school to be poached, to be in a better conference. Like, they're just lily pad hopping until all of this gets settled and it's basically the NFL. 2 conferences split up into divisions, and away we go. So I'm not surprised that the AAC has been looking at Air Force prior to this news. And maybe they were sensing something out there with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, or maybe they weren't. It probably don't need to. The move makes sense. I'm not saying it would be the best move. I think in an ideal world, you stay in a conference that's based on geography. You promote those rivalries, right? All that kind of stuff, but that's just not the reality. Air Force already in one sport travels across the country every week. It's not something that can be easily done by basketball or baseball or some of these other sports, but hockey does it. They seem very happy in Atlantic hockey. They're competitive out there. This is a national school, right? There's many kids from Texas and New York and Florida and California and Iowa that there are Colorado kids on Air Force, right? And we're talking about football making the decisions. And I would hope that Air Force makes decisions that is for the good of the entire athletic department, but as the football program goes, so does everything else. And the decisions that are being made right now in college athletics have to do with the football program. So that's the reality. So if we're looking at it through that lens, I think it would be a good move. Right? If this Mount West Pac-12 thing especially stays tumultuous and the future is uncertain, to go to a place where you would get Army and Navy every year in your conference, I think if anything, it heightens those rivalries. I think it makes a lot of sense. And this is a school, an athletic department that has tried to expand its footprint, considering they draw from every state. They play games down in Texas. They travel to West Point. They travel to Navy. Looking at the geographic footprint of the American for Air Force football, it makes a lot of sense. Where does that leave basketball? Where does that leave baseball? Where does that leave all these other sports? That would have to be sorted out. But if we're just taking it from the football perspective, I look at it and I say it makes a lot of sense. And what's going on with the Mount West and the Pac-12 maybe makes it an even more attractive thing for Air Force to consider. Now, the interest is going from the AAC to Air Force. That's the report today. Is it being reciprocated? I don't know. But this is the AAC looking to gobble up another team to make themselves as large as they can. And Air Force makes sense for them. And for Air Force, the American does make some sense. So we'll see where that goes. But Pete Thamel today reporting that the AAC is strongly, I think was the word he used, considering approaching Air Force to join up with their conference that is already home in football to Army and Navy. Getting to some of your texts on the day's topics, 719-24/7-1313. From the 719, no interest in CU versus CSU, but very disappointed in Air Force. No quarterback, offensive line, running back, fullback, all bad. Hell, entire offense is bad. Quality defense, Calhoun needs to see what his younger players look like. I wasn't expecting them to suddenly come to life against Baylor, and credit to the Falcon defense for holding in there as long as they did. And that's what they've been doing. They've been Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man in front of that locomotive, with where he's like stretched out and he's trying to hold it from keeping it going over the edge. Like, that's the Air Force defense right now. And Baylor would just too many dudes. To your text, though, my guess, and we'll get more into this, I think, tomorrow, I think there's a quarterback change coming. And it's not holding John Boucher just accountable for Baylor. That would be kind of a knee-jerk reaction. It's 3 games, and it's not working. And I said the focus of this season, if it wasn't there already, they got to get right to some degree for these service academy games. And right now is the time in the calendar where we see a lot of teams make quarterback changes. They're heading into a bye week. They got Wyoming on the other side. That's been a place that has been an absolute house of horrors for them over the years. I think that that's where we're heading. And obviously it'll be a younger quarterback. The thing is, as far as the entire offense is concerned, they're kind of already doing that. And that continues to kind of be the subplot to what's going on with Air Force right now. They are just everything they lost going into this year. And they're down 2 fullbacks, a running back, multiple wide receivers. Like, they don't even have the personnel that they thought they were going to have after all of these key players graduated. And that's what I think you lament as much as anything else if you're a Falcons fan, is like, I would at least like to see what they were supposed to look like and judge from there. Because the team you're seeing through 3 games on the offensive side of the ball is not who they were supposed to be. But injuries happen. I mean, look at the NFL. Pacheco's now out for 2 months. McGlinchey's out a month. Jordan Love missed his first of what Green Bay hopes are 3 games. Like, you know the nature of football. I think there's going to be a quarterback change. Troy Calhoun has not been shy about doing that in the past if he feels like he's not getting out of that position what he needs to. Heck, he even intimated at the beginning of the season that John Boucher would not be the only quarterback that they would play. And he wasn't saying it in there's a difference, because a lot of years it's based around attrition, right? You run the style of offense that Air Force does. Your quarterback takes a lot of hits. Injuries happen. You got to go to other guys. It felt different when I heard him say it this time around. It felt like we're evaluating this position. And hasn't been much to make you say that there shouldn't be one. And we know quarterback changes as well, and Michigan's making one going into a very big game for them against USC. It's also the spark aspect to it. It's not just on the performance of the guy that's playing the position now. It's about, sending a message or lighting a spark to say, hey, this isn't good enough. We got to shake something up. And that's the position where you normally go. So bye week this week for Air Force. Then they get ready for Wyoming. The number one question will be, who will the quarterback be against Wyoming? I think that's where we're at with Air Force after a very another really tough performance from the offense in a blowout loss to Baylor. 719-247-1313. Take more of your thoughts before Monday Night Football. Falcons and Eagles. Another one of those 0-1 teams in Atlanta, trying to avoid the same fate as the Broncos, the Ravens, Rams. So a fair amount of desperation from Kirk Cousins' team. Of course, Kirk Cousins on a primetime stage is a thing. Maybe not for Atlanta's benefit, but it's a thing nonetheless. In the meantime, did you know that you can now use your body's own healing properties to revitalize your achy joints and get you real lasting pain relief? You can. And I'm talking about advanced regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics. If you're tired of arthritic pain in your knees, hips, back, or shoulder, this is something you should definitely check out. Tens of thousands of patients are raving about their results, the results that they get with no surgery, no drugs, no steroids, and how about this? No downtime with QC Kinetics. Isn't it worth at least taking them up on their offer of a free consultation if you've been dealing with that achy joint pain? 719-347-1988. 719-347-1988. QC Kinetics. Call now. Take action to get lasting joint pain relief with help from QC Kinetics. 719-347-1988. Hello there. Welcome in. Drive Time Sports on a football Monday presented by Hooters of Colorado Springs. If you're looking for a place to watch Atlanta and Philly tonight, Hooters of Colorado Springs. Catch the fan filler while you're there. 10 boneless wings, fries, a dressing, and a drink for only $16.59. Get into Hooters of Colorado Springs for all the football action. Ryan Kaufman with you. Bottom of the hour, our coverage of tonight's professional football game between Atlanta and Philadelphia will begin courtesy of our friends at Westwood One Sports. But in the meantime, much to attend to, including the three stories that are driving the show. All right, let's go with this for story number one.
When you run a play and it doesn't have success, are we putting in our guys in the best position? We're rotating a lot of different personnel groups in and out. I don't know if that's helping us, quite honestly. And we just need to evaluate that closely, evaluate what we're doing relative to our personnel.
That is Broncos head coach Sean Payton 2 weeks in. Kind of same for the Denver Broncos as they fall to the Pittsburgh Steelers, another 0-2 start. But this 0-2 start feels a lot different, doesn't it? One of the reasons is because this game in many ways was kind of the offensive version of the 70-20 loss last year to Miami for Denver in this regard. Like, the defense did pretty well yesterday, wouldn't you say? And I know I can hear your response. I don't care. You don't. You shouldn't. It's like the fact that Russell Wilson put up 20 points against the Miami Dolphins defense. You really don't care because you're focused on the other side of the football. All those field goals were good for was keeping Sean Payton's name out of the Broncos record book as the only coach to ever get shut out at home. That's it, because there was no realistic way, given the way they were playing, that they were going to ever find that touchdown they needed to truly make that a game. It was just window dressing. And the fact that the Broncos defense held down the Steelers and have played pretty well over the past couple of weeks does not matter one iota. Is all about the offensive side of the football. Now, part of the reason why this 0-2 start feels a little bit different is because there's a rookie quarterback at stake here. What to do with Bo Nix? And I think the comment there from Sean Payton points to that a little bit. Enough of this, we're going to win more than people think we are, and watch out for the Broncos. Sean Payton and his buddies in the national media have done a fantastic job of fooling people into thinking that the Broncos were this year's trendy team. That's all gone now, and we can focus on what is important, and that's making sure that Bo Nix does not go the way of Bryce Young, who was benched today by the Carolina Panthers just 2 games into his second season. Finding the right personnel is more about Bo Nix than it is about winning football games. They have to maintain his confidence. They have to give him some help. And I don't know that Cortland Sutton said after the game, help comes from within. I'm not so sure. But the Broncos got to exhaust every internal option. Because right now, you could point to Bo Nix and say it hasn't looked good, and I would agree with you. But did you watch Sunday Night Football? Caleb Williams doesn't look good. Have you watched the Commanders? Jaden Daniels isn't lighting the world on fire. He just got to play the Giants yesterday. Heck, have you looked at quarterbacking play across the league? Bo Nix is not the problem here. Yes, he was not good yesterday. Yes, he has room to grow. But he has receivers who can't separate from defensive backs. He has running backs who can't break a tackle. He has an offensive line that, as well compensated as they are, can't hold up against a pass rush. And now they have lost Mike McGlinchey for a month. The question going into this season was not if Bo Nix is ready for this. It's whether the Broncos are ready for this. And he just has no help. So if that's getting Troy Franklin on the field, as he was, but wasn't really a factor, I don't know. They got figured out. Because Bo Nix is already talking about the existential. Okay? They need to get him some good game film. And I think there are two ways that they can do that. Two things that you seize on and move forward with. One, Bo Nix is better at making a play than he is the play. Meaning, when these games are, to be fair, already decided, and Bo Nix is just out there playing, he's making plays. You got to figure out how to capture some of that throughout the rest of the game. Bo Nix, to me, sounds like a guy who is putting tremendous pressure on himself because he has a demanding head coach and a demanding fan base. Now, this is what he signed up for, and he embraced it when everybody was loving on him. He's got to embrace it now. But the fact of the matter is, this is not an easy franchise to play for, and this is not an easy coach. And it sounds like that's starting to show through with Bo Nix. Sean Payton has got to help him just play. Stop worrying about making the right play. Just make a play. And that's the problem with Sean Payton's offense. You got to make the play, a specific play. Go here, go there. When it's late in the game, Bo Nix is just kind of running around, throwing the football around. It looks good. You got to find some ways to replicate that throughout the rest of the game. And maybe a way to do it is kind of counterintuitive. And I know that the Broncos still need to find a place for the run game. But if you're going to pass it, just pass it. Stop making Bo Nix make all these decisions. Stop trying to fool people. Spread it out. Go empty. Let Bo Nix survey the defense the entirety of the play. Don't let him turn his back trying to fake a handoff. Don't do the RPO thing. Just let him see it. He's supposed to be one of the quickest processors of all these quarterbacks. Let him process. Clearly, he's not as quick as of a processor as Sean Payton thought he was. Okay? Bumps along the way. It happens. Maybe you have something there, and just when you want to pass, when you're serious about passing, just do it. Put a bunch of receivers on the field and let Bo Nix just play. See a guy that's open and throw it to him. And it's now time to start going down the field. I didn't think they needed to go down. It should have gone down the field as much as they did against Seattle, but this is a progression. Got to go downfield now. And that can give Bo Nix confidence, or it could destroy him. That's kind of where we're at right now with Bo Nix, but you got to try. Whatever works, you got to do. And some of the things that have worked are a little counterintuitive to Sean Payton's offense, to what you expect to be the best way to handle a rookie quarterback. But part of this is finding what works for him. He's not Caleb Williams. He's not Jaden Daniels. He's not Russell Wilson. Find what works for him. That's what Sean Payton needs to do. Here's story number 2.
We want to score. The game is about scoring, isn't it? I don't know protocol. You should have called me and told me when to pull off. They was trying to, as long as the other team is trying to score, we're trying to score. That's my rule.
It seems like only Deion Sanders could take what was almost a perfect night for his football team, trouncing an in-state rival, completely shutting them up after all the flapping of the gums that went on over the past year or so. Only they could take such a perfect night and ruin it. And what they did on the last drive was an embarrassment. 7 plays on the final drive, they threw it 5 times to try and run up the score on CSU and to try and pad the stats of Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. It's in that order, but it's both. Run the football. It was working. Run the football. That's normal game management. This is not about being polite. This is not about being a gracious winner. This is just good game management. You're up by a significant amount. Don't put your quarterback in harm's way just to get him a few extra passing yards or an extra touchdown. Run the football. This is what we have all agreed on is the best way to end a football game that you were up by a lot. To me, it took everything that CU had done, all their ability to get the run, their shutting down of the CSU offense, all the good things that you say, man, maybe they got something here. Maybe they can carry it into Baylor, and just totally wiped it away with grandstanding. And the kicker of all of this is they didn't even run up the score. They were unsuccessful in that endeavor. Such a bad look. You had already done the job. You had nothing to gain, and you had everything to lose, and Deion decided to risk it anyway. Good win, I guess. But only that coach can take a great night and turn it into a negative. And it's exactly what he did. Story number 3 is a report from Pete Thamel of ESPN saying that the American Athletic Conference, home already in football to Navy and Army, is considering Air Force as an expansion candidate. Now, he did say that this was prior to all the discord going on right now between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, because that's just the way conferences operate, is they're always thinking about the next team that they can add. But I said this when the news about the Pac-12 poaching 4 teams from the Mountain West went down. This is an opportunity, I don't think that you wanted any of this to happen, but this is an opportunity to look out for you and decide what is truly best for you. And from a football perspective, purely football, the American makes a ton of sense. Navy and Army are in your conference. You're expanding your footprint. This is not a regional. It's not a lot of kids from Colorado Springs and Pueblo and Boulder and Denver on this football team. They attract from everywhere. For football, the American makes sense. Air Force hockey plays in a conference clear across the country. It's worked out for them. Now, The other side of it is what happens to the rest of the sports. And to me, if you could finagle it to where Air Force hockey plays in the Atlantic hockey, that football plays in American, and everyone else can stay in some form of the Pac-12 or the Mountain West, okay. I don't think you can drag a lot of these other programs clear across the country all the time. Trust me. I follow one of those programs in traveling. It's a bear. It's difficult. And that's just going to Albuquerque and Logan, Utah, and San Diego and Vegas. For football, if you take everything and just isolate football, the American makes a ton of sense. But you got, not that any other school is, but if you're Air Force, what you hope is you're thinking about the entire athletic program. And if you could remain in a conference that more regional around here, or you just say Mount West Pac-12, we're here to help you patch things up because we want this big old West conference and we want to be a part of that in all these sports, including football, then great. Not surprising, the report today. And we'll see which way, how this progresses first and foremost, because this is only the American being interested in Air Force. No reports on the reciprocation of that. But I think the conversation needs to happen. If it would be better for the football program to be in a conference with Army, Navy, and expanding its footprint out across America. 719-247-1313. Next segment, we'll take whatever text I have time to get to before Monday Night Football. Yeah, that's it. We'll do that. You know, there are a lot of ways that people acknowledge that, okay, it's the start to the holiday season. Some people never acknowledge that there's an end of the holiday season. But for many people around here, the official start of the holiday season is when Trans-Siberian Orchestra rolls through town, and they are doing exactly that on November 17th at the Broadmoor World Arena. Tickets on sale now, but they will go fast, even with 2 shows on that day. Very popular around these parts. BroadmoorWorldArena.com is the most direct and best place to go to get your tickets. Text close out the show today. Let's see. I was talking earlier about Jay Norvell and how his seat could be getting a little bit warmer after the loss to CU, especially in that way. I said, you know, the border war is going to be either the nail in the coffin or what keeps them hanging on. But I did ask the question, what is Jay Norvell's signature win? And credit to this texter, signature win against Boise. Last year, that was CSU's first ever win against Boise. I had forgotten about that, in part because the Rams proceeded to lose the next 3 games. And that's kind of my point. Right? It hasn't been all bad all the time with Jay Norvell, but when he needs to be, like, take the Boise win and parlay it into more wins. Nope. 3 straight losses after that. But Saturday, really bad. And Mount West has got some teams. Boise. I probably should have included Ashton Genty in my early Heisman invites. I'll bring him instead of Jackson Dart. How about that? That would be. So Jaden Milroe, Travis Hunter, Cam Ward, and Ashton Genty. We'll do that. But Boise, UNLV ranked. CBS showed the graphic on Saturday, has not beaten CU, Air Force, or Wyoming in his tenure. That can't, I'll just say now, Jay Norvell is not the head coach of the Rams next year if that number in the win column is still 0 by the time this season is over. For CU, on the other side, from the 719, CU needs a bowl game for relevance. Was talking about Travis Hunter, that CU needs to stay relevant enough in terms of winning to keep Travis Hunter in the conversation, because they're going to start to push it towards the quarterbacks. And I agree. And that's where I had this team. And they're still, I mean, nothing. Take out, trying to run up the score at the end of that game, how bad they looked against Nebraska. Like, the wins and losses so far have tracked for what I thought this CU team could be. So getting 6 wins is still a possibility. I think Baylor becomes very interesting and a must get. But taking away winning and losing and the consequence of that on Saturday, I want to see if the run game can happen against Baylor. Because it feels like the Buffs have a coaching staff that will find every excuse in the book to go away from it. And I just think it was so good against CSU that they stayed with it. And I don't even think they stayed with it enough, but progress was made, certainly. The way they played against CSU certainly, I think, makes the intrigue around the Baylor game on Saturday greater. Dave Aranda had his weekly press conference today. He is not going the way of Jay Norvell. He is all respect all the time. So, not going to do that. Same texter, Bo Nix will only keep people interested until the Nuggets and Avalanche start playing. We'll see. We'll see. I've been living here a very long time in this state and have very much looked forward to the day where we just cared the most about the best teams and stopped, and paid less attention to the teams that don't win. Like, be that kind of a sports market. And Broncos. Like, Rockies fade into oblivion, but the Broncos, I think as long as I think Bo Nix, if they bench Bo Nix or he gets hurt, then I could see it. What you're saying should be right. Right? 2 teams in a championship window opening up their seasons. It's the Broncos and it's the NFL. We'll see. And this from Steve G. Wouldn't you think that you would surround your rookie QB with the best players that you would have on your roster, trying to make it easier for him and the team to win? You would. And that's where, Sean Payton's gone this route of my guys. And now it's time for him to look at who are Bo Nix's guys, figuring out who that is. So here's where, going into this Tampa game, here's where Sean Payton has to let go a little bit of the I am infallible. I've done this a long time. It's my system, my. And he's got to start tailoring this thing to Bo Nix. I'm not saying all of his ideas have been bad through 2 weeks, but it is the best coaches, Andy Reid being the standard bearer in today's NFL with no Bill Belichick, and even with late Bill Belichick, I think Andy Reid changed who he was as a coach when he got Mahomes. Right? The best coaches tailor what they do to their quarterback. And Sean Payton, I don't think has done that quite yet. Maybe he thought that Bo Nix did fit with certain players, and now he's finding, like, it's a little bit of trial and error here. But now it's like, yeah, anything that works with Bo, anyone that works with Bo, that's what you have to go with. And in that way, Sean Payton can actually show just how good of a coach he is. Because the my system, my guys, my, they don't tend to really fare well. More on that tomorrow. I appreciate your patronage. Coming up right now, our coverage of the Falcons and the Eagles, courtesy of our friends at Westwood One. Catch me tonight at 10 o'clock on KKTV 11 with Corey Roldan, talking more about the Broncos and Steelers. And I will talk to you on this channel tomorrow.